President Biden's health was breaking news, prompting the broadcast networks with all their dramatic alerts and music to cut into regular programming.
Good morning, everybody. We are coming on the air with breaking news out of the White House. The president has tested positive for COVID-19. That, according to a statement from the White House released just moments ago. The White House saying that the president is experiencing mild symptoms and has started taking an antiviral medication called Paxlovid.
Paxlovid is a pill. It's an oral pill that high-risk COVID patients take to avoid having to be hospitalized. As the Washington Post reported, Biden, who was 79 years old, is in a relatively high-risk group, experienced a running nose, fatigue, and dry cough beginning Wednesday evening, according to White House physician Kevin O'Connor. Biden immediately canceled a planned trip to Pennsylvania on Thursday and will isolate at the White House until he tests negative. This is the latest dramatic moment in a pandemic that has killed more than 1 million Americans and affected virtually every American. Biden is fully vaccinated. He's been boosted twice. And again, from the Washington Post, this infection comes as the highly contagious Omicron subvariant BA.5 rips across the country, and as the virus has increasingly seeped into Biden's inner circle, infecting everyone from his family members to many of his top advisors, including his chief medical advisor, Anthony Fauci. President Biden sought to reassure staff and supporters on this day through a tweet. He tweeted, "Folks, I'm doing great. Thanks for your concern. Just called Senator Casey, Congressman Cartwright, Mayor Cognetti, and my Scranton cousins to send my regrets for missing our event today, keeping busy." This was the second straight day when Biden health news turned into breaking news. On Wednesday, while President Biden was talking at a clean energy climate change event in Somerset, Massachusetts, the president said he had cancer and blamed it on an oil-soaked Delaware upbringing. Watch.
The first frost, you know what was happening. You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer, and why can't for the longest time. Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
The White House quickly went into damage control mode and clarified that President Biden was referring to a minor non-malignant skin cancers that he had removed before he became president. Still, the Biden misspeak, verbal gaffe, combined with concerns about COVID now have reinforced some Democratic concerns about his overall health and his age, and maybe whether or not he's suffering any sort of cognitive decline. The greater political challenge, though, for President Biden has to do with his poll ratings, and they stink. According to the latest Quinnipiac approval-disapproval rating, President Biden stands at just 31% of Americans approving of his job as president, 60% disapprove, and this is the worst approval rating in the Quinnipiac poll for Joe Biden since he took office. And to put it in perspective, Joe Biden's approval rating in the Quinnipiac poll is actually lower than the approval rating Donald Trump had shortly after January the 6th insurrection. Cenk, thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, Biden's in a world of trouble, not through COVID, but because of his poll numbers. I got another one for you, David. New poll just came out of Iowa, a very relevant political state in America. Biden's down at 27% approval rating in Iowa, 27%. So these are disastrous numbers, and there's a number of reasons why, and one of it is slightly related to the cancer gaffe, I guess. So as to why he said that, who knows what goes through the mind of Joe Biden. It might have been, to be fair to him, that he had non-melanoma skin cancer cells removed earlier in his life, and he might have been referring to that. That's the most benign explanation and a good one, okay? And it might have been that he had COVID and he said cancer instead of COVID, but I don't think so. I read into the details of how they found out he had COVID this morning, and it does appear they found out this morning. Most likely it's a verbal slip up, but which has gotten him into a lot of trouble because people are worried that he's too old and doesn't know what he's doing. I think the substance proves that way more than any slip up that's stylistic. But the other part of it is there's one possibility that nobody ever considers in mainstream media that they should. Biden tells tall tales all the time, right? Not a little bit. He's got a history of not just making things up, but making things up that are egregious, not even close to true. like getting arrested with Nelson Mandela in South Africa. That never happened. I mean, that is an insane thing to make up. And so I don't know if he was just trying to get sympathy there or if it was just a slip up. But overall, in terms of COVID, as you can tell, I'm getting to a third. I'm not overly concerned. The fact that he is double vaccinated, double boosted does make a giant difference. And that's why people are justifiably, I think, not overly concerned. He's 79 years old. You still got to worry a little bit. But if he was not vaccinated, are you kidding me? This would be the first 4 or 5 stories in the rundown, because everybody would be concerned that he would be, with his health what it is and his age what it is, that he'd be in a lot of trouble. And so, but thank God he is, and that goes to show you, if he recovers as we suspect, you ought to put a couple of thoughts behind getting vaccinated and boosted. And David, to give you a sense of how I'm thinking ahead, I got boosted on Wednesday night. It's my second booster shot. So I'm not saying that I could tell the future. I'm just saying, okay.
Well, and it may have been the case also that, maybe he wasn't even really thinking about COVID when he made the cancer slip, that he was just concerned because he was trying to make some sort of point about fossil fuels and how much they can pollute things, and somehow just sort of, as he's often done, he misspoke about when he got cancer and said, I have cancer, and meant to say had cancer. Fair or not, whether Biden's health issues or low approval ratings are gonna put a drag on him for some time, fair or not, there is a growing echo chamber, particularly among the Democratic establishment, that maybe Joe Biden should not run for re-election. The polls show that most Americans think that he should not run for re-election, and that has prompted a lot of speculation now among strategists about Michelle Obama. And the reason is because Mrs. Obama just announced that she has a new book that is coming out and will be published November 15th. It's called The Light We Carry. And look at how Mrs. Obama described it and essentially teased it in a video she just released. Watch.
I can't believe it's been a few years since I published my memoir, Becoming. And in that time, a lot has happened. We've seen a global pandemic. We've seen an insurrection, a rising tide of hate and bigotry and intolerance, and a whole lot more. And it's often left me feeling out of balance. I don't know about you, I felt vulnerable. And yes, at times I felt afraid. How do we overcome? How do we overcome our fears? How can we channel our frustration into something positive?
How do we channel into something positive? Well, Cenk, I've been told by a couple of Democratic strategists now that there have been some Democratic donors and some operatives who have gone to the Obamas and say, look, we don't know whether Joe Biden is going to run for re-election or not, but Michelle Obama, if he decides not to run, would you at least consider it? And as far as I've been told, the door has not been completely shut by Michelle Obama. She seems to like the attention. The speculation, of course, would only be great for her book sales and highlight her at a time when she's trying to, sell this book and perhaps match the 17 million books that she sold the first time around. Whether or not Michelle Obama is the savior that the Democratic Party thinks she might be, if let's say Donald Trump is the nominee and Democrats are looking up at, well, who's their star that can match him? I'm not so sure about that, but there's certainly a lot of speculation now driven by Joe Biden's awful low approval ratings and some hopes that perhaps Michelle Obama can somehow come in and rescue the Democratic Party.
So I'm going to say that I predicted this about a month ago to a friend of mine, but it doesn't count because it wasn't on air. So let me say it on air for the first time here. They're going to consider Michelle Obama several times between now and 2024. And the time that they're going to consider her the most is when it looks like a progressive might get the nomination. Right now, we're not anywhere near that fact pattern. Mainstream media and corporate Democrats and Republicans have all ganged up on progressives. We're probably at our very nadir 24/7. Every single person in Washington attacks progressives. We don't have a viable candidate. So it sounds fanciful to say that a progressive might actually challenge Biden or whoever the establishment puts up if Biden doesn't run. But it is not at all fanciful. I'm here to tell you right now that a progressive will make a very strong run in 2024 because it's natural, it's obvious. If you have a primary, a progressive will be in it, and progressives are much more popular than do-nothing moderate Democrats. So this is the first wave of Michelle Obama panic, but the most significant wave will be when a progressive is ascendant in a Democratic presidential primary, then they're gonna wanna bring Michelle Obama in because she's royalty. And if we're being honest about it, they'll get to weaponize identity politics and love the Obamas and the Democratic electorate at a nuclear level to try to fend off a progressive. But David, at the end of the day, yeah, it might be good for book sales, but I would be surprised if when they go low, we go high. Michelle Obama would deign to enter the dirty fray of electoral politics, where she will not have an opportunity to go high, and her opponents will go very, very low. And I think the Obamas are royalty now, and I don't think they're gonna climb down from their castle to get back in the mud.
I think you're right. And Michelle Obama has said to many friends through the years that she knows what a horrible job being president really is, and how much worse actually running for president, all the political complications that it entails, and all the bargains and deals that you have to make. She hates retail politics. That's not her thing. And so I sort of come down on, look, she's gonna enjoy all the attention. She's gonna enjoy the Democratic Party saying, oh my God, we're being challenged, whether it's by progressive or because the Democratic brand is in such terrible shape. She will enjoy the attention, but I think at the end of the day, she's gonna say, no, that's not me. I don't want it handed to me on a silver platter. I don't want the job. I've been there for 8 years. I've seen how difficult it is, how much pressure it causes. That's not something I need. Go find somebody else. And we'll see what the Democratic Party does.
So that first wave of Michelle Obama panic tells you the sorry state that Joe Biden's in. And that's the point of this story, right? So the minute he has a touch of COVID, people are like, okay, that's it. Call the bullpen, bring in Michelle. Forget Buttigieg, forget Kamala Harris, forget everyone. And it's because they know the voters don't like those folks. Why? The reality is because they're corporate Democrats. And honestly, Michelle Obama wouldn't be any better at all, as far as we know. If she's anything like Barack Obama, that's corporate Democrat extraordinaire. So that's why the fact that they're panicking to the point of discussing Michelle Obama 3 months before the midterms shows you how disastrous a shape Joe Biden is in. And by the way, while we were talking, news broke now the awful, hideous Republicans in Congress that just voted no on protecting contraception rights. I mean, just absolute Neanderthals. Now more popular than Joe Biden with Latino voters. This is an epic disaster.
And Democrats, look, they have a lot of work to do, right? I mean, all the polls show that the Democrats are losing ground among Latino voters. African-American voters are not as strongly supportive of Democrats. Democrats are losing white working class voters. They're trending more now towards college educated, but they're losing those who are not college educated. In other words, Democrats, the party of the working class, that's changing. And whether it's because the Democrats are not being progressive enough, which is what I would argue, or because the Democrats have sort of lost their way. I mean, the Republicans are not doing anything to change this. It's not because Republicans are offering something that's causing white working class voters to drag over to Republicans. The Democratic Party is not serving the needs of working class Americans. It has lost its way. And I think there's an argument to be made that it's lost its way because people see that the Democratic policies, the establishment centrist policies, have not done anything for them. They're not delivering. And there's also this perception that the Democrats are just as hardwired towards corporate America as the Republicans are.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.